It's graphic.
Oh, I love that. Yeah. Looks fantastic.
I agree.
Welcome to those that are coming on. Glad you're all here, and we'll be starting promptly at 10 a.m.
And that should provide a minimal, we shouldn't have to move it around so much.
Right, that's perfect.
I mean, I can make this bigger, but I don't really see a reason to do that.
Yeah, I agree.
Welcome to those coming on. We'll be starting right at 10 o'clock. Appreciate your being here.
Just do that to make sure we're centered.
Karen Allen, you can put your email and phone in the chat if you want.
Sure
And
thing.
that way it'll be in there.
Okay, great. Thanks, Barbara.
Sure.
And access the chat.
Oh, on the bottom.
Oh, there we
Oh.
go. We don't have any typos.
Yes.
I do. Okay, let me go back and fix them.
Just
Okay.
on Caren and Shire.
Couple extra people on, welcome. Be starting in just a
I can't go.
couple of minutes.
Hey, where is it?
Oh, because you did return every time.
Oh, geez.
Yeah, that's all right. Look at the idea.
All right, I'll fix it. Sorry about that.
You got it.
Okay.
Perfect.
The rest of my typing, okay?
Yeah, perfect.
We'll be starting in just a couple minutes for those of you coming on.
A little theme music.
Jeopardy music or something.
Okay, we're getting to right about 10 o'clock. I'm going to go ahead and start. I'd like to say good morning to everyone and welcome to Get in the Driver's Seat Roadmap, Your Estate Plan. A reminder that this event is being recorded to Facebook Live, so it is in perpetuity. Before we begin, my name is Barbara Rosenberg. I'm with Elderwerks Educational Services. I am a senior advisor. Behind the scenes is Dina Liss, who handles our social services and is our the head of our whole team and office over at Elderwerks in Palatine. So thank you for helping us do all of our recording today. Elderwerks Educational Services is a not-for-profit 501c3, and our mission is to provide older adults, seniors, and families information, referrals, guidance for senior living, home care, and support services to help make appropriate decisions. This includes education on senior topics for community members as well as professionals. We do educate for nurses, social workers, and nursing home administrators, and more. Today is not a CE, today is a consumer event, which is wonderful. And if you have any questions throughout the presentation, please put them in the chat. And then I will be monitoring the chat for Alan and Caren as we go through. Their slides are very, very encompassing, so I'm sure you will be learning a lot. So I wanted to go ahead and introduce Alan Press and Caren Naidoff from Shire Law in Lincolnshire. They have been amazing professionals and speakers for Elderwerks over the last bunch of years. And thank you again for doing this wonderful presentation for all of those on here.
Thank you so much. And thank you to everybody for joining us this morning for Get in the Driver's Seat, Roadmap Your Estate Plan. As Barbara introduced, I'm Caren Naidoff.
And I'm Alan Press, and we are partners at Shire Law Group in Lincolnshire, Illinois, and we're an estate planning and elder law firm. So thank you again, Barbara, for the kind introduction, and Dina for getting us all set up today. We're very happy to be here to present Get in the Driver's Seat, Roadmap Your Estate Plan. So a lot of people may have estate plans already created. Maybe they don't. We're going to talk a little bit about estate planning as well today, but we're going to focus on this roadmap concept, and we hope that you find it informative and enjoyable.
And like we said, please put in the chat any questions you have. We're happy to answer those throughout the presentation or after the presentation. If you have any questions that you're thinking about that you might not have been able to ask during the presentation, feel free to contact us. We're happy to speak with you. You can reach us at 847-955-9000, or you can email us at alan@shirelawgroup.com and Caren@shirelawgroup.com, which we also placed in the chat for you. So with that, let's get started. So what does having an estate plan with this roadmap concept do for you? Importantly, it allows you to achieve peace of mind and plan for your best future, and also to protect the ones you love. And we're going to delve into each of these this morning. So we're going to be giving you an overview of how estate planning can protect you and your family. How does that roadmap coordinate with your planning? And all the attendants these mornings should have received a roadmap, and we'll be talking about that. And why is this roadmap so essential to have in place? So we're going to get you ready to set and to plan. But first, we're going to start with this brief review of estate planning documents. So what is estate planning? Estate planning is the process of using an attorney to help you prepare for your future. So how does that happen? Well, you're planning for who you want your wealth, your assets, your property, and more to be gifted after you pass away. So those people that you're gifting to are known as your beneficiaries. So in addition for who that you're planning for, we're talking about how you're planning, how you want your wealth, your assets, your property, and more to be gifted to after you pass away. Estate planning also involves directing your healthcare and guiding your finances during lifetime. So if you become incapacitated, that's an important piece of estate planning. Estate planning also involves minimizing or avoiding taxes and minimizing or avoiding probate. And Alan's going to talk about that a little bit this morning. That probate can be time consuming and it can be expensive. So we wanted to show you this chart that we have up on the screen this morning, what the ideal family estate plan would involve, what it would encompass. And we'll talk about some of these pieces this morning. A last will and testament, known as a will. Perhaps you'd have a living trust, and in that case, you'd have a pour over will. We're going to talk about planning for incapacity during lifetime. That involves those powers of attorney for property, power of attorney for healthcare, a HIPAA authorization, and the living will declaration. And then it also involves assignments and deeds, handling beneficiary designations, thinking about long-term care planning, possible irrevocable trusts, and importantly, that roadmap of your estate plan.
So we're going to talk a little bit about some of the basic documents just to kind of touch on them so we're all clear on what they are. And we're going to start with a last will and testament. And this could also, commonly be referred to simply as a will. A will, very importantly, is only effective at death. And this is going to be important because when we take a look at trusts and powers of attorney, they have a different timeline, right? So a powers of attorney are only going to be effective during lifetime. A trust is going to be a document that's effective during lifetime and after death. But when talking about a will, it's only a document that is going to only be effective after somebody passes away. It allows you to designate a guardian or guardians if you have any minor children. And basically, it's going to instruct the probate court what you want to have happen with your assets when you pass away. Who do you want to leave your money to? So we've all seen, maybe had some experience with wills, or maybe we've seen it on TV where everyone sits around a table and discusses what Uncle Fred left to everybody. That doesn't really happen in real life, the little meeting, but it could, of course. But everyone has an idea of what a will is. Wills also tie in with this concept of probate, and people often wonder, what is probate? What does that mean? Probate is just a legal process to administer somebody's estate. It was created primarily to handle claims. So if I passed away and I owed somebody money, let's say I owe somebody $10,000, that person is most likely going to want to collect their money, their $10,000, prior to my money being distributed pursuant to my will. Maybe I'm leaving everything to my spouse and my children, right? So creditors, or people that we owe money to, need a legal mechanism in order to make a claim. And the probate process is primarily designed for that purpose, and also for other purposes. If there's a dispute about a will, if there's a question as to whether or not a will is valid, if there's a question as to whether or not somebody was competent and knew what they were doing when they made their will, all of those things can happen in a probate proceeding or a court proceeding. And just to define what is an estate's a legal entity that's created at the time of your death, right? So when you pass away, all of the things that you own or have responsibility for kind of make up your estate, right? So it could be assets, it could involve liabilities and claims. All of those things make up your estate. Now let's compare that quickly to a trust. A trust is also a legal document, just like a will, a document that you draft. People utilize trusts because they can streamline the administration of your assets and liabilities during life and after death. So let's key in on that during life part, because unlike a will, a trust is actually going to be effective immediately upon signing. So it can handle things during your lifetime for you and after death. So it's a great tool to handle potential incapacity because it's effective immediately upon signing. Trusts avoid probate. So what that does is a couple of things. Is it kind of reduces the expense and cost of probate, but it also provides privacy because there's no public proceeding, there's no court proceeding to administer somebody's estate if everything is contained within a trust, because trusts generally are going to remain private. There's no court intervention. So, you can keep the family business within the family. When you have a probate proceeding or you're administering an estate pursuant to a will, The will does have to be filed with the county after somebody passes away. And the probate proceeding is going to be public record. So that's open up to other people, other individuals can go look at your probate file. Also, marketers and people that want to sell services are going to key in on that as well. So having a trust is going to provide privacy. It also provides maximum control, because let's say I want to leave my money to my spouse and my children, but I'm concerned about the way that my children are going to handle the money. And maybe I want to put some conditions on there, or state when and how they're going to receive the money. Maybe, they're going to receive 1/10 a year for 10 years after my death, or when they reach a certain age, they're going to receive a certain amount. A trust allows you to be very specific about how and when and under what conditions you want people to receive money after you pass away. Trust is going to bypass the cost and the time that it takes to probate an estate, because again, no court intervention is going to be needed. And it's going to enable your trustee to carry out your wishes, again, as specifically and as exact as you want them to be. Let's take a quick look at some trust terms. A person who creates a trust is going to be the settlor or the grantor or the truster or the trust maker. All of those terms mean exactly the same thing. We use the term grantor in our office just because it's what we learned in law school. And a trustee is the person that you're appointing when you create your trust to manage the trust and to take control of everything, but pursuant to the terms of what the grantor created in the trust document. Can somebody be a grantor or a trust maker and also make themselves the trustee? And the answer, of course, is yes. In fact, it's a very popular mechanism. I might want to create a trust for myself, but while I'm alive and well, I want to be the one in charge. I want to be the one handling the trust. So I'm going to make myself the trustee. Now, if I become incapacitated, or when I pass away, I'm going to have successor trustees designated in the document that are then going to take over the management of the trust after I'm no longer able to do that. But during my lifetime, I'm going to make myself the boss. Beneficiaries, well, this is kind of an easy one. We all know what beneficiaries are. These are the people that are benefiting from the trust, the people that receive the money, receive the benefits of what's put together in the trust. Can somebody be the grantor, make themselves the trustee, and also make themselves the beneficiary of a trust? And again, the answer is yes. In fact, it's a very common process in a revocable living trust. I create a trust, I make myself the boss, the trustee, and during my lifetime, I'm going to be the beneficiary. I want to be able to spend my money and use it the way that I want. So you can, again, the beneficiaries may change. After I pass away, I'll have other beneficiaries, maybe my spouse, maybe my children will become the beneficiary. So that could change pursuant to the terms of the document. Let's just take a quick look at some trust truths. Trust truths, it's a tongue twister. Trusts give you more control as to how your assets are going to be distributed, because you can get very specific as to what you want to do. Trusts do need to be funded. This is very important. And unfortunately, we run into this a lot. People create trusts, but then they don't put anything in them. So we want to make sure that if you're creating a trust or you currently have a trust, you want to make sure your assets are in the trust. How do you know if they're in there? Well, do your statements say John Doe, or do they say John Doe as trustee of the John Doe Trust? If they say the former, maybe it's not in the trust. You want to take a look at that. So, and you also want to make sure your beneficiary designations are handled as well to make sure everything is working properly. Trusts avoid probate. So that's a big time saver of money, and also you maintain privacy. And trusts are going to be easy to administrate because they don't require any court involvement or court orders. You get to operate, the trustee gets to operate independently, and it's usually much quicker, much more economical and easier to administrate. So why pre-plan? This is an important concept. A will or trust is going to provide peace of mind that you've taken care of business. You've provided for your loved ones in a manner that meets your unique goals and desires. Creating a will or a trust is going to avoid property distributions that are dictated by statute, right? If you don't have a will or trust, the state of Illinois has one for you, and you may or may not like the outcome of where your money is going to go. So you can easily avoid that because we all have the freedom to create a will that says whatever we want it to say and leave our money to whomever we want to leave it to. Creating a will or a trust is going to avoid potential conflicts, and it's going to avoid the additional costs that may go with trying to settle somebody's estate who hasn't done any planning. I mean, you've worked hard, you've collected wealth and items during your lifetime, and I'm sure you want to make sure that they're distributed at the time of your death in the way that you intend. Let's just take a quick look at this chart, will versus trust, and this kind of gives us some of the concepts we talked about already today. A will, only effective at death. A trust, effective upon signing. A will doesn't really allow for planning for disability because it's only effective at death, right? So if I'm hit by a bus and I have a will is not going to do anything if I'm not deceased. So it doesn't allow for planning for disability. There are other documents that can supplement a will, like a power of attorney. We'll talk about that a little bit later. But a trust, because it's effective upon signing, can plan for disability as well as death. A will, probate may be needed, especially if your estate is typically going to be in excess. Your probate estate is going to be in excess of $100,000. A trust is going to avoid probate completely if it's set up properly and your assets are actually in the trust. A will is going to be open to the public. A trust is going to remain private. Wills are typically less expensive to set up, but more expensive to administer, where a trust is the opposite. It's usually a little bit more expensive to set it up, but it's typically going to be much less expensive to administer. And a will, you have a little bit less control as to how your assets are going to be distributed. Of course, you can create a trust within the will. That's a whole other topic. But then you don't get the other benefits of the trust. But creating a trust is going to allow you to be very specific about how and when and to whom you want your assets to be distributed and under what conditions. So you can really spend a lot of time crafting that to your liking.
Should we check chat?
Yeah, before we move on to the next topic, there's some stuff in the chat. Let's take a look and see what we got. Oh, is that us?
Yeah, I think we're good.
Okay, so I think we're good.
Okay.
All right, so we'll move along with planning for disability.
So whether you have a will-based plan or you have a trust-based plan, you should have documents that plan for disability as part of your overall estate planning documents. So a lot of times people think about planning, estate planning in terms of what happens when I pass away. How do my assets get distributed and who do they get distributed to, like Alan was discussing. But what happens if you become incapacitated? It's very important that you have very good documents in place that address that. So some of the different documents that are part of your estate planning that can address planning for incapacity, planning for disability, are, like Alan just discussed, that revocable living trust. You should also have a power of attorney for property, a healthcare power of attorney, a HIPAA authorization, a declaration for mental health treatment, if that's something that you would think would be relevant, a living will declaration, different than your will, it's actually a healthcare directive, and a DNR, or do not resuscitate. We're going to talk about these documents one at a time, but the documents that are having a little asterisk next to them, you can see that these are health-related medical documents, and those make up what is known as your advance directives. So when people are talking about your advance directives, they're talking about that healthcare power of attorney, the HIPAA authorization, the declaration for mental health treatment, the living will, and the DNR. So let's take each document one at a time so we can discuss the importance of each one. And we're going to start out with that power of attorney for property. So in our office, we refer to it as a power of attorney for property. It can also be known as a financial power of attorney or a durable power of attorney. So that power of attorney for property is a written document in which you give someone the power to make decisions on your behalf about your property and finances if you become unable to make these decisions yourself. So what if you needed help with financial affairs? That's where the power of attorney for property would come in. So on your power of attorney for property, you will list the individuals who you authorize to step in and help out with financial affairs if that would be needed. There is a unique feature about the power of attorney for property that you can make it effective only upon incapacity, but you can also make it effective for convenience. So there's some real benefits for that. And depending on what your situation is and who you're naming, it's just something to think about when you are putting together your power of attorney for property. There's then the medical related documents for planning for incapacity. So you can think of it as kind of two buckets. So you have the one bucket that's financial if you need financial assistance, and then you have another bucket that deals with medical. And in that financial bucket, it's that power of attorney for property. So again, you're thinking about property in the broad sense, like not just real estate, a home, but you're also thinking about anything financial, bank accounts. So that's that one bucket. Now we're going to switch over to the other bucket, which is medical related. And the first document that's in there is your healthcare power of attorney. So whenever you see power of attorney, it's a decision-making document. Power of attorney for property, financial, somebody to step in and help out with financial decisions. Power of attorney for healthcare, medical, somebody to step in for medical decisions. Now, importantly, none of these documents that you would put in place supersedes or overrides your own ability to make your own decisions about things. This healthcare power of attorney, for instance, which is also known as a medical power of attorney or a healthcare proxy, is a written document in which you give someone the power to make decisions about your healthcare on your behalf if you become unable to make or communicate these decisions yourself. So if you're able to say, hey, I want this procedure, or I want to do this or that related to my health, you're in control of that. But when the healthcare power of attorney becomes essential is when you're unable to do that. So that's when this is a very essential document where, again, you're naming the people who are going to step in and make decisions for you when you can't make your own medical decisions. And in these powers of attorney, whether it's your power of attorney for property, which is financial, or your power of attorney for healthcare, which is medical, you can only name one individual at a time. So it doesn't mean that people that you name within your powers of attorney can't speak to one another. They'll just look to the first person named to make a decision on your behalf. And in that power of attorney for healthcare, you can make some choices about life-sustaining treatment and important decisions like that. Your HIPAA authorization is also in that medical bucket. It's the Health Insurance Portability and Accountability Act. And all of you have signed HIPAA authorizations before, right? When you go to your doctor's office and they have you sign a HIPAA form, and most likely you have to sign it every time you go to your doctor's office, and their HIPAA authorization says, hey, it's okay for us to contact whoever you have named. They can then release your medical protected information to whomever you've designated on your HIPAA authorization. Now, HIPAA, there's not an order. You can name as many people as you want, and anybody that you name on there can, for example, call up that hospital or that doctor's office and get information about what's going on. So you might say, why do I need a general HIPAA authorization if every time I go to my doctor's office, I'm going to fill out a HIPAA authorization there? So the reason being is, what if you end up in a medical facility, in an emergency room, a hospital you've never been in before? So they don't have any paperwork on you. And at the time you enter, you can't say, hey, it's okay if my family members call. You can tell them what's going on. That's when this general HIPAA authorization becomes very, very important. So when we do these documents for our clients, we always give electronic copies as well. We always get the question, what documents should I give to family members? And we will recommend that the people that you've named in your HIPAA do get a copy of that HIPAA authorization so they can electronically send it to wherever it needs to go if needed. And I actually can vouch for this because I needed to use it for my adult son who was in a hospital during the time that he was at university, and they would not even tell me if he was admitted before I had sent this HIPAA authorization to that hospital. So again, very important document. All these documents, electronic copies are good enough. Actually, the only document that you need an original of is your will, because the original has to be filed upon death, but all these other documents, electronic copies are just fine. So in addition to that power of attorney for healthcare, which is the decision-making document, and if you can't make your own medical decisions, and HIPAA, where you can call up a hospital and get information based on who you've named in your HIPAA authorization, there's also a living will declaration. And this gets confused all the time with your will. It's not the last will and testament that Alan spoke about. It also sometimes gets confused with a trust, because sometimes trusts are referred to as living trusts. The living will declaration is a healthcare directive that states your wishes regarding life support in the event you are in a persistent vegetative state or irreversible coma and cannot communicate your own wishes. So in the living will declaration, there's a long paragraph that says, if at any time I have an incurable or irreversible injury or disease that's judged to be a terminal condition by my attending physician, I want to be able to die naturally. That's the gist of it. If you believe and agree with that living will declaration, that statement in that paragraph, then you could put a living will declaration in place as well as part of your estate planning. When you go in the hospital and they ask, do you have a living will declaration? And that is the healthcare directive that they are referring to. So DNRs, a lot of times people get confused between the DNR and the living will declaration. There is a very distinct difference between the two. DNRs are do not resuscitate. It's a medical document or order which tells doctors not to restart your heart or breathing. So normally a doctor is going to give CPR when you stop breathing or your heart stops. It has to be signed by your physician. So you do not want to put a DNR in place if you would want your breathing or your heart to be restored. Maybe somebody who would want a DNR is somebody who's at an end stage illness or have had numerous heart attacks. And if they have one more, they do not want to be resuscitated. So you want to be very careful. Also, sometimes you get a form and it'll say, I do not want a DNR in place. Well, sometimes somebody just looks at that form and glances it and says that it's DNR. So you want to be careful and avoid signing anything like that too. So don't put a DNR in place unless you are sure that you want one. And again, that's a doctor's order.
We get people that come into the office and they're like, they're like 40 years old and they're healthy and they like, well, I want a DNR. And we have to tell them that's probably premature to be asking for a DNR. And, they're more likely looking for a healthcare power of attorney, and the HIPAA authorization and the living will. Those documents are fine to enter in no matter how healthy you are. But a DNR is really going to be for people in that end stage illness.
Yep. So your roadmap. So all of you who are attending were given a roadmap. So we created these roadmaps for our clients because we realized there was something missing with, estate planning. Besides having really good documents, you have a will-based plan or a trust-based plan, then you have all your powers of attorney and healthcare directives. We would have people come into our office and they had lost a loved one and they would have no idea what was paid online, what bills were out there. Was there a safety deposit box? Who to contact? So we created, and we're happy to share that with you this morning, this roadmap, as we call it. So once you have your estate planning documents in order, you need this roadmap to provide direction so your estate planning can be carried out in the way that you envision. And we just want to go over the different parts of the roadmap and why they're so important. So creating a roadmap, it's kind of like an informal letter or a document that's going to guide your family in understanding and executing your planning and ensuring that all your wishes are carried out. It's also a great way to truly personalize your wishes. So your roadmap is yours. I mean, you can put notes in there. You can put as much in there as you want to. And the more you put in, actually, the better you put in. So we always encourage people to anything that you would want somebody to know. The roadmap is a great place to put it.
And we always feel too that you should do what you need to do to make it yours, right? So everybody's roadmap, I mean, we've provided a format for you, but really the key is to make it work for you. Some of that might be digital. You might have it on the computer. Some of it might be, in a binder or a folder, something that you do in writing. So you just kind of need to make it your own so it works for you and your family.
See what the chat is up there.
Oh yeah, let's take a quick look. not sure that I received the roadmap. I registered yesterday. Yes, we'll make sure that if you didn't receive it beforehand, that we'll make it available. If for some reason you don't get it, you could always email Caren or myself, and we'll provide those emails at the end. It's well, they are in the chat though. Alan at shirelawgroup.com or Caren at shirelawgroup.com. So we're always available as a backup in case you don't get that.
So this is a peek into what you're going to see when you do get your roadmap. So part of your roadmap in there is important contacts like your accountant or your attorney, your insurance agency, your financial advisors. So unless somebody knows where to go, they could be kind of spinning their wheels here, like just looking for mail or documents that list somebody's name, as opposed to you just having it in the roadmap for them. So just being able to identify your important contacts with their name, at the minimum, a phone number, an email is always good. So the more information, again, you can give, the better. I mean, if you're incapacitated and you need somebody to, contact an insurance agent or a financial advisor, this is going to be your opportunity to let who's ever going to be stepping in and helping out know exactly who they need to go to and how to contact them.
You always want to think about like the person who's picking it up, right? So when we prepare an estate plan for clients, we provide it digitally, but we also provide a binder, so the paper documents in there. So if something were to happen to you and either a spouse or maybe your children or other family members or loved ones are picking up this binder, many times the biggest fear is like, where do I start? Who do I call? What do I do? So to the extent that you could have this stuff readily available for them, a nice list of, this is my attorney, this is my accountant, these are my financial people, in case of emergency, call this number or do this. That's going to go a long way into making it much easier for your family if something were to happen to you and they're trying to figure out, where do I start?
Yeah. The other thing that is in your roadmap is an area where you could write the location of where you keep your will, your trust, any tax returns and records, your powers of attorney, insurance policies, deeds, automobile title, and other important documents. So when we do estate planning for our clients, they get an estate planning roadmap. So everything's in there. And then we tell them to, put that someplace and let whoever needs to know where your planning is. But perhaps you have things that are scattered different places, and just being able to identify where you've kept those things is going to be helpful for a loved one who needs to access and find these things. This is also a great time and a great opportunity for you to kind of think about all that's out there, right? What you have, where you're keeping things, and maybe either consolidate it into one place, or if it's going to be in different places for a reason, whatever your organization system is, the roadmap is an opportunity for you to write that down so nothing is up for guessing where it might be or what's missing, what's out there, what haven't we found. So the object is not to have a loved one have to try to figure out and search. The object is for them to very easily be able to access any of these really important documents that they might need at any particular time.
Yeah, when I did this project myself, like I didn't know where my car title was, and then I started thinking like, geez, if I don't know where the car title is, if something were to happen to me, how is anyone else going to know where it is? It's going to be that much harder for them to find. So it's a really great process just to kind of get organized and get these things kind of lined up and have a system that not only does it make it easier for me to find things now, but also if something were to happen to me and my spouse or my children are trying to locate some of these things, that they're going to have the easiest time possible in doing that. So.
And just as a side note, we know the presentation didn't focus on this morning on beneficiary designations and all those, but this is a really good time. As long as you're looking at your insurance policies, your deeds, your automobile title. I mean, it's just a great time to look at that. Make sure that you have beneficiary designations. It's the way you want them. You know, like Alan said, it's a really good time for you to take a fresh look at everything as you're going through the roadmap, and just make sure that everything is in the order that you want it to be in at this current time.
This question that's in the chat, and I'll make a comment and you'll add to it. Where do you recommend items be located, i.e. documents? You need to see an attorney. You know, you can't pull these things offline. They are not personalized. They are not thorough. You really need to retain an attorney to do all the right POA, property, healthcare, et cetera. And so you can add to that. We've had this question many times.
Yeah, thanks, Barbara.
Well, we would agree with you on that. But I was wondering if the question was trying to ask, like, where do you keep these items? So was that part of the question?
Where do you recommend items be located, i.e. documents? So for sure, not in a safe deposit box. That much I know.
Yeah, because we run into trouble with that when, you know, somebody passes away and a family comes in. They may not even know that a safe deposit box is even out there, right? Because, you know, I have a safe deposit box and we only get the invoice for that thing like once a year, right? And it comes in the mail, I think. So, you know, if I were to, you know, pass away like a week after I paid the bill for the safe deposit box, the next invoice may not even come until the following year. So, you know, if my family is not aware that I had a safe deposit box, no one may even think to look at it. So we always recommend leaving documents in a safe place. I mean, you don't want to leave them out on the kitchen table and, you know, have the kids spilling orange juice on them and stuff like that. That wouldn't be good. But, you know, I keep my stuff, I keep it in home. We have a bureau, it's like closed. I just kind of keep it in there. And then we have the digital copies as well. So, you know, everyone in my family knows where to find it. That seems to work out well for us. Some people have a, you know, like a safe in their house, which is okay too. But you want to make sure that your family, your loved ones, maybe even ones that don't necessarily live with you, have a way to get the combination to that safe, right? Because they may come across the safe, but if they don't know how to get in it, I mean, that's going to be creating another problem as well. So, yeah, you want to keep it in a safe place, but not an inaccessible place, right? That would be a problem. And part of this roadmap concept as well is letting your family and your loved ones know where you're keeping your estate planning documents and all of this other stuff that we're talking about. So it's not a mystery, right? We don't want this to be like a, you know, an episode of, you know, like Columbo or something, right? We don't want people to have to try to figure stuff out. We want it to be easy for them. So you want to make everything accessible.
Right. I mean, if somebody's, you know, you're dealing with a loved one who's incapacitated upon their death, I mean, really, that's what you want your focus on, as opposed to having to deal with this stress of the unknown of where to find things.
Duplicate copies too. I know we have, you know, our executor, you know, has their own copy. So we had second copies made for certain people.
Exactly.
And so you have to really, really pick people you trust, of course.
And that's a great idea, but also, you know, sometimes people create documents and they don't necessarily want to give copies to the executor right away because maybe they want to keep things private while they're alive. And that's okay too. But then at least let your executor or your successor trustees know where everything is. So if and when something were to happen to you, they have the ability to find it. That would be okay as well. Some of our clients like to give copies to everybody in the family of everything, and that's completely fine as well. But that's not the right answer for everybody. Some people prefer a little bit more privacy during their lifetime. So
that goes back to the conversation we had about HIPAA. If you are not wanting to give your documents to the people that you've named, that HIPAA authorization would be a good thing for you to give, because that doesn't have anything private in it. It's just an ability for them to call up a hospital to get information about what's going on. So that is one document that you might want to consider sharing. You know, the alternative to that is them coming into your house and finding it, and that might not be the best answer. Also in your roadmap, you will find a section for a personal financial statement that lists any stocks that you might have, or bonds, real estate, bank accounts, retirement plans, vehicles, any kind of assets, as well as information about mortgages, credit cards, and other debts. So when you put together this financial statement, you don't need to give a lot of information if you're not comfortable about that, but you just want to identify what's out there. So your loved one knows exactly what assets exist and what they might have to address. So if you have multiple bank accounts in the same, with the same place, like, you have 5 accounts at BMO, you might want to include the last 4 digits of the account just to identify that from another one. But just generally having a simple asset list in there is going to be extremely helpful to whoever might need to step in and intercede and help out with finances or make decisions for you. Same thing with your vehicles and any kind of mortgages and credit cards. So they would know what needs to be paid off, right? Especially if you're incapacitated, what bills are coming in.
Another good idea too, if you don't want to do the listing or the financial statement, is you could just, put copies of recent statements from these different accounts, whether they be bank accounts or brokerage accounts or credit card bills or whatever. Maybe every January you put the statements into the binder. So if something were to happen to you, they have easy references, they have account numbers, they've got phone numbers, they've got, what you owe, they got the due date typically. So, I mean, not suggesting that you update it every month, but maybe once a year you put in, like maybe every January, whatever, you put those statements into the binder, and then the following January you replace it with, current ones. So the most current information is going to be in there.
So the beauty of the roadmap is you can make it your own. In the roadmaps that we provided, you can see that there's little graphs that have your assets. You can fill them in if you want to, but you don't need to. Like Alan said, the roadmap is your own. The idea is that you're just getting all of this information out there in your roadmap should a loved one need to rely on it to know what they need to do for you or on your behalf. The other thing that you'll find in your roadmap is a little place for an inventory of digital assets like email accounts. Importantly, online banking and brokerage accounts, online photo galleries and social media accounts, including the login and the password information. That's important. So one thing that people often struggle with when they have a loved one that's incapacitated upon their passing is they have no idea what's paid online. They don't know what's out there. And even if they do know that there's something that's online that's paid, they have no idea what the password is to get into that information and to help you out on their behalf. So it's a very, very important that, you can list all of these different online banking accounts, but unless somebody knows the password or how to get in there, they're not going to be able, or they're going to have a difficult time getting in and helping out with that. So another thing to put in your roadmap. And then in your roadmap is an area where you can put computer passwords and home security system codes. So this is something that a lot of people don't think about. What if you set your alarm and you walked out and something happened to you, became incapacitated? I mean, just somebody knowing what your home security system codes are, your computer passwords, if you might have a second home and you might leave that alarm on all the time. These things are really important, but it's also important that you share some of these things with somebody who would need to know, right? So because your roadmap is inside of your house, what if somebody needed to access your home? So not all of these things you're going to share with other people, but there's just a few things that this is sort of a good time to think about. Who is a trusted individual? Just to let them know what the code is, should they have to get into my house, or how to get a key if that would be needed. So there's some things in your roadmap that you're going to share with somebody who's a trusted individual, but a lot of things in your roadmap are just going to be there should somebody need it, should something happen to you, and you just need to tell somebody who you trust where that roadmap is so they can access all this essential information. Same thing with safe combinations and the location of any safe deposit boxes and keys. So we will say something about safe deposit boxes, just going back to that for a moment. So if you have a safety deposit box, it is very, very important that you name authorized individuals besides yourself and a spouse. The reason for that is it is extremely difficult to access a safety deposit box. Should something happen to you, you have to have somebody else that's named on that box. So just keep that in mind. And as you're going through this roadmap, just make a note too, if you do have a safety deposit box, just make sure that there's another authorized individual on there should you become incapacitated or upon death and somebody needs to access whatever might be in that safety deposit box. And then obviously, if you have a safe and you're keeping things in a safe, you want to make sure that somebody you trust, again, knows how to access the information in that safe. Believe it or not, it seems intuitive, but there's lots of times where somebody does not give a safe combination, or they change the safe combination and do not tell the individual who had the prior one. So very important that you have that arranged too. Let's just check, see chats.
No, I think that those are okay.
Oh, they're
Saying,
okay. Okay,
yeah.
great.
The, another thing to think about is that they also, of course you can commit these passwords and things to paper. That's one option, but there are also other options available like apps and things like that. So, I utilize an app that just requires one password to open up the app, and then all of the passwords for, different sites and things like that are located within there. So all my family needs to know is what's that one password to get into this app, and then they can see all of the other passwords. It also does other cool things like generating passwords for you, so you don't use passwords that are like, password or, 1, 2, 3, 4. It kind of creates these complicated passwords that you can copy and paste onto your computer or onto your phone or your tablet. So there's lots of technology available out there to assist with this. Again, the roadmap is meant to kind of be your thing, what you're comfortable with. So if you're not comfortable with utilizing an app, that's fine. If you are, that's always going to be an option for you as well.
So if you use one of these apps, and we don't endorse one app over another, Alan uses 1Password. I use Keeper. They're both excellent. But you'd have to tell somebody what the password is to get into those apps, that 1Password. The other benefit, on a side note, of having these apps is that it's good for your relationships, because my husband would constantly change the passwords constantly, and my kids would go crazy because they didn't know the Netflix password, and then we'd have to contact him, and then he couldn't remember what he changed it to. So the nice thing about these apps is once you change a password, it just changes it all together, and you can allow certain people to have access to certain passwords. So obviously my kids don't have access to my passwords for my bank accounts, but they do for the Netflix account. So there's a lot of cool things that you can do with these.
Maybe your husband was doing that on purpose.
He might have been. He might have been.
But it's nice. So then if you use one of these apps and, your kids or whatever, your family has access to some of the same app or whatever, if you change the Netflix password, then it automatically gets updated on all of the devices, and all of the users get updated as well. So this way you can keep family harmony.
Yes,
So,
helps.
I will say, before you guys started using that app, Karen's husband had everything on a yellow legal pad, and stuff was written sideways and upside down, and it was very complicated to figure that out.
It was true. And not only that, but the legal pad was right next to the computer. So not such a good idea.
Yep.
But yes, but now we've resolved that because we have our password app. So something to look into if you think that's going to work for your family. So the other great thing about the roadmap is you can put the location and importance of family heirlooms or other valuable personal property, right? So sometimes you have heirlooms that are out, and sometimes you put them away someplace. One of the things that you can do in your roadmap, and this goes back to making it your own, is you can explain the importance of heirlooms or important personal property that you have. So for example, I've had a vase that's been passed down through generations, and I have told my kids the story of this vase, and I'm pretty sure they are not listening and sort of rolling their eyes a little bit because I've told them so many times. But the nice thing about my roadmap is I've actually written down why it's important. So there's lots of good things that you can put in your roadmap. Again, anything that you would want somebody to know, you can put in your roadmap. I have personal notes to my kids in there, so you can put whatever you want in there. Again, information about wishes, like funeral arrangements and burial wishes, you can put in your roadmap. It's a great place for that. Now, you do want to share that with somebody who is a trusted individual about what you would want, because maybe somebody wouldn't take a look at your roadmap before they had to make some quick decisions about funeral arrangements. So that's something that you would want to share with somebody in advance, or at least say to them, it's in my roadmap, and this is where my roadmap is. So either way, you want to make somebody aware that you have in fact written that somewhere. If you don't want to verbally tell them what that is, at least let them know that it's in this roadmap and this is where the roadmap is. And if the roadmap is kept in a safe, the combination to the safe. And then miscellaneous instructions can also be in your roadmap. So things like, don't forget the cash that's hidden under the mattress or in the can buried in the backyard or something like that. So again, you want to think of the roadmap as, what would somebody need to know if something happened to me? That's how you think about the roadmap and what you put in there. So if you're including information on like digital assets or something like that, you want to make sure that anything that you don't want to ever write anything on your documents, your will or your trust or your powers of attorney or healthcare directors. You don't want to actually write on there. The roadmap is a document that's meant for you. So you can write everything on there. You don't need to worry about the roadmap itself. It's not an official document. It's a document that's been created for you to fill in, and then you create it based on what your wishes are, what somebody would need to know. So importantly, the benefits that are added to your roadmap is it could be a place to explain to loved ones the reasoning behind certain estate planning decisions. So what happens if you have some unequal distributions of your assets? You have perhaps 2 children and one of your children acted as a caretaker. So you are going to be giving that child more than the other child. This is an opportunity for you to explain that. Or explain any other kind of reasoning you have with, who you've decided to leave certain things to. And then a great place to write notes or sentiments to your loved ones. Again, we have a little note here. Again, do not write on your will or other documents, but your roadmap is the place where you can write notes, these kind of sentiments that you can make sure that somebody is going to receive.
We even had some, it's a beautiful story, but we had a client that had early onset cognitive impairment and decided to write a book that could be passed on to his grandchildren and great grandchildren. So they would know a little bit about his life. And he went as far as even writing a little book about his earlier life and some of the adventures that he had during his lifetime. And it was really a beautiful way to kind of memorialize some of those things that he wanted to make sure got passed down to his family. So, maybe it's not a book, but maybe it's a letter that you write or something along those lines that's really going to provide something that your family is going to treasure and really find valuable to them if you're able to leave them a gift like that.
And the idea here, right, is peace of mind, right? This is going to give you peace of mind that your loved ones are going to know what they need to know. It's really a gift that you're giving by planning. By doing your estate planning, it is a gift, not only to yourself, because if you can't make your own decisions, you're naming who can make them. This roadmap is also a gift because if something happens to you, again, if you're incapacitated or upon death, you're making it easy for your loved ones to be able to know exactly what they need to know. And they feel good about the fact that you've given them that instruction. This is coming directly from you. They don't have to guess on, what you would want or how you feel. It's all right there.
Yeah, because the purpose of a roadmap, of course, is to find out where you're going. And when someone's looking at a map, they're trying to get somewhere. And it's a great analogy for, what you want to be able to provide to your family. You want to provide for them an easy road to get to where they need to be in order to take care of things, pursuant to your wishes and what you're desiring have happen after you're no longer around to do that. So
So importantly, like any of your estate planning documents, the roadmap's not going to be effective unless your family or important individual in your life who you trust knows exactly where to find it. So whether it's with a trusted person or in a designated place, you need that go-to person who's going to know where to go to find your estate planning documents, to find your roadmap. Again, you know, when we do these for our clients, it's all in one place, but however you have decided to organize, it's very important that you let somebody know. You can do all this planning, and if it's not accessible, it's not going to be as useful as it would otherwise.
Yeah, so don't bury it in the mattress with the cash
Yes.
or in the backyard in the peanut butter jar. You want to
Exactly.
have it available. I mean, you want to safeguard it, of course. So, you know, not just anybody can grab it and look at it, but you want to keep it secure. But at the same time, you really want that access to be available to your loved ones and your family.
So when you're thinking about estate planning, right, it's really important to have really good documents in place, either that will-based plan or the trust-based plan. It's very important that you have your powers of attorney and healthcare directives in place, and they are done well. In Illinois, if you don't list specific powers, the people that you're naming to step in might not be able to help out with them or might have a difficult time. So very important that you have very strong powers of attorney and healthcare directives in place. And then this roadmap to coordinate with all of that. So that's how you have this peace of mind that you provided for your loved ones in the way that you intend, that you have complete peace of mind, that your documents are in good place, and this roadmap is going to guide whoever needs to find things or know things. So this is just another emphasis to make sure that you put that roadmap in place in addition to your estate planning documents. Okay, we have some questions. And again, we're going to take all your questions, but if you are thinking about things after the fact, we like getting questions. It's never a problem for us. So please feel free to call us, and our number's there and in the chat, 955-9000, or you can feel free to email us. Email both of us. Caren, it's Caren with a C, Caren at shirelawgroup.com, or Alan, ALAN at shirelawgroup.com. And let's check out the
So
chat.
you see the app. So it was, what were those apps again? And what should you do if you have no family and outlive your friends?
Sure. So the apps that I use something called 1Password. There's many apps out there. So again, we're not saying that these are the best, but I've been using that for many, many years. And I like it because if I update something on my computer, it gets updated on my phone, it gets updated on the iPad. And if you have a family plan and other people that are utilizing the service as well, it'll update on their devices too. So, and I do like it as well because it seems very secure, and it has a lot of security features that are built into it.
And I use Keeper. Keeper was a little bit more intuitive to me than 1Password. They're both excellent programs. Keeper's great. I mean, it works for us. And
Is it keeper.com? Is it just an app?
Yeah,
Keeper and 1Password?
I'm sure if you just Google Keeper, you'll find it. With 1Password, I think it's 1Password.com.
KEEPER, correct?
Right. And if you do a Keeper password protector, I'm sure it's going to
It'll
pop
pop
for
up.
you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then with 1Password, I'm pretty sure it's just ONEpassword.com.
Okay.
If you Google that, I'm sure you'll find other stuff as well. But those apps are very nice and secure. And, so it's something that I've been using for probably in excess of 15 years.
I can tell you it's much better than the legal pad with the passwords upside down and sideways for us. It works much better. There is a setup time, right? So in the beginning, it is like, I have to set it up and be a little patient, but then when it's done, it's like clockwork. It's great.
And I like it too, because there's browser extensions. So it can autofill, like if you frequently go to a website and you need to log in, it can automatically copy the username and password for you. So it's a big time saver as well. And at the same time, focused on security. So.
And then the other part of that question, Barbara, is who to name, right? So we always say, name the people that you would want today. So people say to us, well, I would really want to name my mom or my dad, but they're elderly. We always say, name who you want to name, because it will go to the first person named. If they're unwilling or unable, it will go to the next person named. And for those people who are struggling and say, well, I don't have any family, You can name a trusted friend. That's fine too. So, you just think about who you would want to step in. It doesn't have to be a family member. It could be a friend.
Does that answer everybody's question? Okay. Any other questions? What a great, succinct, wonderful presentation. I think the biggest thing in senior living that we do, and, in terms of placing clients in senior living, whatever, we come across most, probably 70% of the time, people that'll say, well, what do we do? My mother didn't have her plans together, and, we're searching, and the siblings are fighting and everything else. And so the biggest gift you can give to yourself and to your children is to plan and do it young, and
Yes.
sort of put away the God forbid book. And that's what it's about. What should you do if you have no family and outlive your friends?
So you can come back to these things. So this is
Yeah.
not, it's not like you make one of these and then that's it. I mean,
Right.
if something happens and everybody you've named have passed away, you can just, you make a new one, and you can name those people. So these can be updated. As a matter of fact, we say that you should, even though that they're good, once you make them, they will be good. But we always say, every 3 or 5 years, you should revisit them anyway. It's a good practice.
I do have a response to that question. Yeah, so I'm sorry.
Oh, go ahead.
No, so I was just going to say, if you have no family and you've outlived your friends, I think whomever you're leaving your assets to, whether that are individuals or charities, you can maybe let them know what you're doing, and also, your attorney might be able to help you with that as well. It's not the best solution, but we keep copies, of course, of all of our clients' documents, and we stay involved with our clients. So utilizing an attorney to help in that situation is also a good idea. But if you're leaving money to a group of individuals, or let's say you're leaving it to charity, the charities would be very delighted to know in advance that you're doing that. And they would take an interest in assisting you to make sure that your planning is set up properly and that they have the information that they're going to need in order to assist you. So a couple of options there. It's very difficult. It's great to live a long life, but if you outlive family and friends, that could become difficult to determine, who's your trusted individual.
We have just a couple minutes because we have another event in just a couple minutes, but there was another question, and then we're going to need to part for the day. Will we receive an email from Elderwerks with a link to the documents from today? We can talk about that. I know we have all the attendees. Not sure what you usually do.
Well, as a backup, they could just send us a super quick email saying they attended the program today and they're looking for the materials, and we'll take care of that for them.
Okay, this will be on Facebook Live. You can see it. It's in perpetuity as soon as we can get Facebook working correctly.
And we don't capture or retain anyone's email, so they're not going to receive any marketing stuff from us other than a response to their email. They won't receive anything else from us, so they don't need to worry.
Correct. Well, thank you to all of you wonderful people for attending. Keep looking to our website, Elderwerks, ELDERWERKS.org for consumer events. And as always, to Caren and Allen, thank you very, very much for your time and your expertise, and highly recommend Shire Law to anyone figuring out their planning. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Barbara.
We appreciate it.
Everybody,
Thank you, everybody.
have a
Great
great
days, everybody.